Okay, so here's another episode of Rebecca Reads, and today I'm going to read from another one of my favorite books, The Tao of Pooh and the Te of Piglet by Benjamin Hoff. And I haven't actually read this book in a very long time, so I hope my reading goes well. I'm accompanied by Ludwig. And Pete. Lovely friend Pete is going to be listening as well.
Very tired. That's why we're sleeping.
Okay. So, here we are about to try and explain Pooh, the uncarved block, in the classic Taoist manner. We wouldn't try too hard or explain too much because that would only confuse things. And because it would leave the impression that it was all only an intellectual idea that could be left on the intellectual level and ignored. Then you could say, well, this idea is all very nice, but what does it amount to? Are you sleeping already? So instead, we will try to show what it amounts to in various ways. Pooh, by the way, is pronounced sort of like poo, but without so much ooh. Like the sound you make when blowing a fly off of your arm on a hot summer day. Before we bring our resident expert in, that's going to be Pooh, as in Winnie the Pooh, for a few illuminating remarks, let's explain something. The essence of the principle of the uncarved block is that things in their original simplicity contain... This is profound.
Sorry.
Listen. Things in their original simplicity contain their own natural power. Power that is easily spoiled and lost when that simplicity is changed. For the written character Pooh, the typical Chinese dictionary will give a definition of natural, simple, plain, and honest. Pooh is composed of two separate characters combined. The first, the radical or root meaning one, is that for tree or wood. The second, the phonetic or sound giving one, is the character for dense growth or thicket. So from tree in a thicket or wood not cut comes the meaning of things in their natural state.
It's not actually true, no. It's all made up.
Okay, it was better when you were sleeping. No, this is true. This is a Taoist reading of Winnie the Pooh. Come back to sleep.
It's all a joke, no?
No, it's true.
It's true.
Okay. So from tree in a thicket,
Shush!
From tree in a thicket or wood not cut comes the meaning of things in their natural state. What is generally represented in English versions of Taoist writing as the uncarved block. This basic Taoist principle applies not only to things in their natural beauty and function, but to people as well, or bears. Which brings us to Pooh, and the very epitome of the uncarved block. As an illustration of the principle, he may appear a bit too simple at times. And now we have a quote from the original Winnie the Pooh books. I think it's more to the right, said Piglet nervously. What do you think, Pooh? Pooh looked at his two paws. He knew that one of them was right, and he knew that when you had decided which one of them was the right, then the other one was the left, but he never could remember how to begin. Well, he said slowly. And now we'll go back to the book. But no matter how he may seem to others, especially to those fooled by appearances, Pooh, the uncarved block, is able to accomplish what he does because he is simple-minded. As any old Taoist walking out of the forest can tell you, simple-mindedness does not necessarily mean stupid. It's rather significant that the Taoist idea is that all the still, calm, reflecting mirror mind of the uncarved block. And it's rather significant that Pooh, rather than the thinkers Rabbit, Owl, or Eeyore, is the true hero of Winnie the Pooh and the House at Pooh Corner. This is a quote again from Winnie the Pooh. The fact is, said Rabbit, we've missed our way somehow. They were having a rest in a small sand pit on the top of the forest. Pooh was getting rather tired of that sand pit and suspected it of following them about, because whichever direction they started in, they always ended up at it. And each time, as it came through the mist at them, Rabbit said triumphantly, "Now I know where we are." And Pooh said sadly, "So do I." And Piglet said nothing. He had tried to think of something to say, but the only thing he could think of was, "Help! Help!" And it seemed silly to say that when he had Pooh and Rabbit with him. "Well," said Rabbit, after a long silence in which nobody thanked him for the nice walk they were having, "we'd better get on, I suppose. Which way shall we try?" "How would it be," said Pooh slowly, "if, as soon as we're out of sight of this pit, we try to find it again?" "What's the good of that?" said Rabbit. "Well," said Pooh, "we keep looking for home and not finding it, so I thought if we looked for this pit, we'd be sure to not find it, which would be a good thing, because then we might find something that we weren't looking for, which might be just what we were looking for, really." "I don't see much sense in that," said Rabbit. "If I walked away from this pit and then walked back to it, of course I should find it." "Well, I thought perhaps you wouldn't," said Pooh. "I just thought." "Try," said Piglet suddenly. "We'll wait here for you." Rabbit gave a laugh to show how silly Piglet was and walked into the mist. After he had gone 100 yards, he turned and walked back again, and after Pooh and Piglet had waited 20 minutes for him, Pooh got up. "I just thought," said Pooh. "Now then, Piglet, let's go home." "But Pooh," cried Piglet, all excited, "do you know the way?" "No," said Pooh, "but there were 12 pots of honey in my cupboard, and they've been calling me for hours. I couldn't hear them properly before because Rabbit would talk. But if nobody says anything except those 12 pots, I think, Piglet, I shall know where they're calling from. Come on." And they walked off together. And for a long time Piglet said nothing so as not to interrupt the pots. And then suddenly he made a squeaky noise and an ooh noise, because now he began to know where he was. But he still didn't dare to say it out loud, just in case it wasn't. And just when he was getting so sure of himself that it didn't matter whether the pots went on calling or not, there was a shout in front of them, and out of the mist came Christopher Robin. That's it. Yes. So, it's a little extract from the Tao of Pooh from me and Sleeping Ludwig.